Would somebody please tell me that Tommy Edman's general soreness was really just general soreness? What's going on, everyone, and welcome into this edition of b-schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer here with you Thursday evening, July 11th, 2024. Going to be doing things a little bit differently for this episode because the Cardinals had the off day on Thursday, heading into the 4-game series against the Cubs over the weekend. 4 games, 3 days coming up before the All-Star break for the Cardinals. And because there was no game, we're going to look around the league a little bit at some topics that are tangentially related to the Cardinals. We've got one that certainly is, as Tommy Edman, we talked about it last night on b-schaeff Daily, was scratched late from the lineup in Springfield. The report was general soreness for Tommy Edman, and we'll offer an update on that as well as talk about a couple of other topics. We're going to get into the Pittsburgh Pirates pulling Paul Skenes, their rookie phenom, who is going to be tormenting the Cardinals for a long, long time. Guy might already be the best pitcher in baseball, but the Pirates pulled him this afternoon on Thursday after 99 pitches and 7 innings of no-hit baseball. Did not give him a chance to go out for the 8th to try and complete the no-hitter or at least extend it. And this was a hilarious topic on The Big Show on Thursday afternoon. You can check out The Big Show podcast if you want to hear it. I'm not going to put that on the YouTube channel because we use some different music behind it during the show, and I don't want to get into any copyright issues by posting it on YouTube. I'm going to link, though, the podcast to The Big Show in the description because Andy, my co-host, and I absolutely went at it about this Paul Skenes move by the Pirates that they pull him after 7. I'll explain my take on it and how it was very much not the same as Andy's, and I want to know, you out there in listener land, what your take was on this with the Pirates pulling him after 99 pitches. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about Max Scherzer's recent appearance on the Foul Territory podcast where he told A.J. Pierzynski essentially that he's not going to waive his no-trade clause. But does that really mean that Max Scherzer is not going to waive his no-trade clause? I will dissect his comments and give my thoughts on them, all coming up in this edition of b-schaeff Daily. Appreciate you guys for joining me. I assume most of you are Cardinals fans, as that is typically what we cover here on the channel. We branch out from time to time, though, so if you like baseball, if you like the St. Louis Cardinals especially, click the subscribe button, and for goodness sake, join the Discord. It is free. The link is at the very top of the description to this video. Over 130, mostly Cardinals fans, I assume, joined the Discord within the last couple of days. And even on the off day, we were talking about all-time favorite Cardinals moments. There are more channels by the day. I just made a baseball card channel and an MLB The Show channel this afternoon. So there's a lot going on there. It's a fun community growing by the day. Check that out if you're interested as well. And, of course, we always have the channel membership, and channel members get some special perks within the Discord, too. So check that out in the description to the video as well. Enough of my rambling. Let's go ahead and we're going to change up the order of operations here. We're going to go down on the farm first things first because that's the most Cardinal-heavy topic that we have today, talking about Tommy Edman. So without further ado, send in the cows. It's time to go down on the farm. Okay, as far as the Memphis Redbirds game is concerned, there's really not anything major to note. They lost 3-2 to the Norfolk Tides in 10. Offensively, a bunch of guys struck out a ton. Herrera was 0 for with 3 Ks, did walk. Walker, 1 for 4 with a walk, but also 3 Ks. He's got the OPS looking very Arenado-esque. Arenado is like right around 700. Walker is at 704 in Memphis. Luken Baker still had a pretty nice day, 1 for 3, couple of walks. OPS is over 900. Maybe he's the answer as a right-handed bat for the Cardinals off the bench. I don't really know. I would love to see Luken Baker get a chance. I feel like we say that in almost every episode because he's been doing pretty well lately, but that's really the only things I care to say at all about Memphis. Not a lot to note from that game. However, let's talk Springfield Cardinals because Tommy Edman continuing his rehab assignment there with the Springfield AA squad, and we weren't really sure he was gonna after what happened on Wednesday, as Tommy Edman was a late scratch from the lineup. I think he was originally scheduled to play the field, and then maybe they shifted it to DH, and at the end of the day, he didn't play at all. I'm not 100% on that. There was a little bit of confusion in the St. Louis press box last night with the folks talking about it up there as to how it was being graded in the the game day system for the Springfield Cardinals. I don't really remember what the original lineup was. It really doesn't matter. The point was Wednesday, he didn't play, and Rob Raines reported that it was due to general soreness that Tommy Edman was unable to go in that game on Wednesday. And we talked last night on B-Schaeff Daily and said if it's general soreness of the wrist persuasion, he's cooked. That's really bad. But I guess either it wasn't or I was wrong, which I am often wrong, because I scoured Twitter. I haven't really seen anything in the way of an update on Tommy Edman other than when the lineup came out this afternoon, he was in it. And he played. Did not get scratched from the game today. It seemed to be maybe just general soreness. Is it a concern? Well, I don't think it's nothing, because you'd like to think that at this stage of the game, Tommy Edman is able to, by July, get back into action after the October wrist surgery. But as we know, it has been a very long and drawn-out process to get him back healthy and strong. And doing so pain-free has been a challenge, one that he was not able to hurdle back in spring training, and the shutdowns and the setbacks were plentiful. Tommy Edman is going to have to be able to, at some point, play, back-to-back days, play full games, play the field, do all of these things that the rigors of an MLB season are going to demand of him. That being said, he's going to take every bit of this rehab process, right? I think the maximum for pitchers is like 30 days. For non-pitchers, it's 20 days. I think Tommy Edman's going to be rehabbing for 20 days, or darn close to it, because it's going to take some time for him to ramp back up to the daily grind of a season. And he played one game and had enough general soreness, and you're just hoping it wasn't wristal. If it ends up that, the wrist is still barking at him, he was able to grind through and play today, but maybe the wrist will be barking at him tomorrow. We don't know that to be the case. We know it was general soreness. So I continue to reiterate that there's a lot that we don't know, right? But hopefully it was just something unrelated to the surgically repaired wrist that kept him out of the action on Wednesday. Because if it was, then you say, okay, this is just another standard part of a very gradual rehab and revamp process. The good news, well, there's a couple of things that are good news to this. Tommy Edman played on Thursday, and better yet, he was on base a couple of times and scored a run. 1 for 3 with a run scored, also reached base via walk. He did strike out the 2 times that he was retired of the 4 plate appearances, but a solid outing for Edman. I think it's about as good as you could have hoped for after the day before we were wondering if the wrist was like going to be a problem and he wasn't going to play again. I said I was at DEFCON 1.5. I was close to going DEFCON 1, but we didn't know. General soreness is not much to go on. A lot of speculating, and that can be fun, but it can also be reckless. So we were DEFCON 1.5 because we had been led to believe to this point that, man, Tommy Edman, we thought originally, as I've mentioned, this surgery was so not even on the radar that when Mozeliak was asked about it in December at the winter meetings, it did not even occur to him to mention it. The question was framed, I think it was by Jeff Jones, in the Cardinals suite there at the winter meetings in Nashville. Asked Mo, is there anything injury-related that we don't know about that you feel compelled to tell us? Just overarching was the question. I was in the room. And Mo said, nope, nothing really coming to mind. Well, then this Edman thing, a few weeks later, it's, all right, we're going to have winter warm-up soon, and that may be something that comes up when Tommy Edman is there. So it gets out that, hey, Tommy Edman is still recovering from a surgery he had. It's NBD. It's all going to be good. But, he may be a little bit delayed at spring, was kind of the way that it was being framed. But the sirens were already starting to go off a little bit. And unfortunately, it has been a longer rehab process than anybody hoped or expected it to be. And there were setbacks multiple times. So because of that, is it altogether surprising that there is a little bit of a... And then he had the ankle thing a couple of weeks ago, right? Just when you thought he was going to be ready to rock, something completely unrelated happened that cost him a couple of days, and it just starts to feel like a Murphy's Law situation. But now if he's playing, and he played on Thursday, and that's great, hopefully he's able to start getting back-to-back efforts and then full game efforts. I think they pulled him for a pinch runner in the 7th inning tonight, which is all part of the gradual process, right? So we'll see on Tommy Edman. I would say good news, though, that he was able to play tonight, take 4 plate appearances, and actually produce a little bit. He's got a 762 OPS and a 333 batting mark, I think, in just a couple of games that he's played. But that's good. Like, just continue to be part of that process, because it would be great if the Cardinals could get Tommy Edman's bat back into the lineup. I know that everybody likes Michael Ciani, and I think he's going to be a very valuable part of the Cardinal team for the rest of the year, and then hopefully beyond that. I think he's somebody that you keep around for several years to come, because he provides a skill set that I think is very compelling, whether it's as a fourth outfielder or something else, very compelling. That being said, Tommy Edman historically has been really lethal against left-handed pitching. And when we talk about, well, what do the Cardinals need right now? Honestly, what they could stand to gain is a right-handed bat that could hit left-handed pitching. And if that guy could perhaps play some center field, well, that would be even better. Tommy Edman does check all these boxes at his best. And I know that his lifetime numbers are kind of MLB average. I think he's got like a 720 some odd OPS for his career, 726. Last year, he was like a 705 OPS. For as much as Michael Ciani has been really exciting in a lot of these games, does a great job defensively and has had his moments at the plate, his OPS is more like 570. So even like the downtrodden version of Tommy Edman probably out OPSs Ciani by 120 points, 690 to 570, something like that. I'd like to see Ciani get up there and get into the low 600s at least. And I do use OPS because I feel like it's more all-encompassing than just batting average or just OPS or just slug. I think if I'm just going to give you one number, it's usually going to be OPS. And if you're using Baseball Reference, you can always scale that to league average, being 100, by using OPS plus. And in that regard, Tommy Edman is a lifetime, pretty much right on the dot average, league average MLB hitter. That being said, he's long been much better against, and he's a switch hitter too, who is a lot more dangerous against lefties, batting from the right side. He's got a career 803 OPS against left-handed pitching, which is when he bats right-handed. He's only taken 65 career plate appearances right on right. Typically against righties, he's batting left-handed with a career 700 OPS. So he is a lot more dominant against left-handed pitching because I think the right side is the dominant side, so much so that he's tried it before to go right on right just to see if there can't be an advantage from that. The numbers, by the way, aren't great on that. I know we've talked for years about should Tommy Edman stop switch hitting. In the rare occasions he's gone right on right, it's typically just been based on the arsenal, the pitches that particular guy throws, and whether the breaking balls are going to be more effective against a certain handedness and responding accordingly, basically, is how that decision gets made. It's only been in recent years that we've really seen it, but just for the record, he's got a 622 OPS going right on right, and he's got a 703 OPS going left-handed against a right-handed pitcher. So that right-on-right thing hasn't really worked, but I think the sample size is still pretty small. Anyway, Cardinals could use the peak form of Tommy Edman. It's something that this team in this season could definitely use because they're very left-handed heavy, and they have not had quite as much success this season against left-handed pitching, which is pretty atypical of the Cardinals because you would think that with guys in the lineup like Goldschmidt, Arenado, Contreras, and now Mason Wynn from the right side, that would be a murderer's row. But Goldschmidt, Arenado have not lived up to their expectations, and then that's how you basically, when Wynn and Contreras are really your only other mainstays that are righties going up and down the lineup, that's pretty much the way that you end up struggling against lefties, which the Cardinals have this year. I want to actually pull up the exact numbers because if that's just something anecdotal that we're making up, then that would be irresponsible. But I can scroll and find that the Cardinals have the 29th best OPS in baseball against left-handed pitching this year. It is a 623 collective OPS against lefties. That's 29th, only ahead of the Marlins. So it's bad. It's been a huge, huge issue I can remember years where the Cardinals, you could just expect they were going to crush lefties because you'd have Goldie and Arenado being good at baseball. You'd have, like, Tyler O'Neill was a pretty good right-handed bat against lefties, and he's obviously elsewhere now. There was just always a number of guys in the lineup that were, you could just tell they were going to feast on certain lefties. And you just haven't had that vibe this year. So that's part of why we talk about Luke and Baker too. But for as much as he may not be a big stick to put in the middle of the lineup, Tommy Edman, whether he's batting ninth or whatever, could definitely be somebody that helps this team against lefties. And if they aren't going to expect to get him back healthy, I do think the Cardinals should either target something like that at the deadline or consider calling up Luke and Baker, consider calling up somebody else. The problem is you won't really have room on the roster until there's an injury. Like, if they're making a trade for a right-handed bat, we've talked about this and we'll continue to talk about it probably in almost every episode between now and July 30th of B-Schaeff Daily. They don't really have spots for guys. Herrera, when he comes back, they can make a decision. It's Pages or it's Herrera, the other's in AAA. That's simple. That's self-contained. Backup catcher, you got to have one. It's going to be one or the other. We can debate who it should be. It doesn't really matter for the purposes of this discussion, though. Because with this, we're talking about, well, who are you going to displace from the roster if you have a right-handed bat that you trade for? Well, Brandon Crawford and Matt Carpenter are sitting there as lefties. Kind of feels a little redundant, but we know the whole veteran thing is of value to the team, and whether every fan out there thinks that those guys are pulling their weight, it may not matter. Like, I think the Cardinals are relatively satisfied with them, and the difficulty of a conversation to tell one of those guys you're out, I don't believe I see it happening. Now, Edman being healthy could change the calculus with Crawford simply because Edman could slide in and play some shortstop if needed, and that would really make Crawford's role kind of questionable. If it's not to a lot of people already, I get that it is, but they wanted a backup shortstop. He's like, hey, I'm your backup shortstop. It's fine. But obviously, you could be a little bit more dynamic with that bench spot. But it's kind of hard to imagine the Cardinals doing anything there. And then the other spot right now is Dylan Carlson. And historically, he's also a guy that you would think would be better because he's a switch hitter who has been better historically against left-handed pitching. And he has been better against left-handed pitching this year. But we're talking about to the tune of a 577 OPS against lefties instead of a 459 OPS against righties. So technically correct is not always the best type of correct. Carlson being traded would still seem to be something that could clear the way for another right-handed bat to slide in. But, of course, Tommy Edman conceivably would be that guy if he's healthy. If he's not, that's where it's like, okay, there's nobody injured coming back that's going to cause a roster crunch unless it's Edman, because Herrera will not be one. It'll be him or Pages, and that's simple. So we'll see what happens there, and my gosh, I really hope some trade talks do heat up because it would be a lot of fun to talk about here. Otherwise, we'll just have to make them up. No, I'm just kidding. We won't do that. But we'll talk about anything that's out there. And the Max Scherzer thing is definitely something that's out there because if you're doing a little bit of tea leaf reading, you see the Rangers aren't so hot in the standings, defending world champions, and they've got Max Scherzer on an expiring contract. So 2 + 2 equals maybe he waives that no-trade clause. He recently told A.J. Pierzynski that he wasn't going to be doing that, but I don't really think that was the full context of the comment. He said, no, I won't be doing that, but he also didn't really want to address the question. So I'm going to play the audio from Foul Territory in a little bit, but I want to tackle Paul Skenes first. I'm not going to tackle him. He's a lot bigger than me. I wouldn't be able to take him, so I'm not going to attempt to physically restrain Paul Skenes. What I meant by that was I want to talk about the rookie phenom of the Pittsburgh Pirates getting pulled after 7 no-hit innings, which is what happened to him on Thursday. He was at 99 pitches, Pirates-Brewers, cruising along. Dude's got 7 strikeouts, and Derek Shelton says, thank you for your service, that's enough, and takes him out of the game after 7. Paul Skenes, I saw, defended Pirates manager Derek Shelton for pulling him and said, I get it. Somebody who definitely did not get it was my co-host on The Big Show, Andy Humphrey. I went ahead and put that podcast link in the description to this YouTube video so you can go and check it out. Go to the 42-minute and 19-second mark of that Big Show podcast, and the hilarity ensues from there as Andy and I argue about this one. I actually had no problem at all with them taking Paul Skenes out, and honestly, any other move might have been what would have been surprising to me rather than what they actually did. Here's a quote from Skenes, quote, "I wasn't going to be surprised either way." Well, it sounds like me. "If he sent me out or pulled me." Skenes said this during an appearance on MLB Network. Quote, "We have Holderman and Chapman in the back of our bullpen, so I think those are probably two of the best guys in the league, so I have a ton of trust in them to finish it. And this is relevant because it was a 1-0 game. Obviously, in a 1-0 game, you want to stay in there, you want to finish it, but the volume's getting up there a little bit, so I get it." End quote from Paul Skenes. Skenes is 22 years old. He has thrown 100 or more pitches in just 4 of his 11 starts this year. And a little earlier in the season, the Pittsburgh Pirates GM was basically quoted as saying, "We don't really know what we're doing with him." Like, Ben Cherington had some really interesting quotes that he gave at one point in time where he said, "The question is, how can you be certain this is right? The answer is we can't be. I don't know for sure. We're trying to do the best we can." He said at one point, quote, "I don't claim that we have any sort of scientific master formula for how we're doing this." Basically talking about the call-up when they did, waiting as long as they did, how long to let him go per game, how many innings they should let him throw this year. Like, everything that goes into this is handling of a generational pitcher. And I'm not even going to call him a pitching prospect anymore because he damn well might be the best pitcher on the planet today. Prospect implies that that's something that's happening in the future. He might be that already this moment. He's now got a 1.90 ERA on the season, 11 Ks today across 7 no-hit innings. And the Pirates are like, look, this guy's a unicorn. What are we supposed to do? We just happen to be the doofs that were smart enough to draft him number 1 overall, but that doesn't make us uniquely qualified to know how to handle him moving forward to make sure he stays healthy and we maximize his talents and all of that. They're just feeling their way through like anybody would. And it reminds me of the Washington Nationals in 2012 with how they handled Steven Strasburg. Like, that's the closest thing that I can recall to this. And Skenes seems like he's better right now than Strasburg was then. And I know that nowadays you think Steven Strasburg, and it's like, all right, he kind of flamed out, but injuries absolutely tore him up. Ironic, right? Because the Nationals were trying to do everything possible to keep him from getting injured. And the Cardinals really benefited from that back in 2012 in the NLDS because they didn't have to face him. But that year he had a 3.16 ERA in 159 innings. I guess he must have had his Tommy John in 2010 because he pitched in 2010, 12 games, but then was only in 5 games the next year in 11. And so 12 was like his first full season back, and they decided to manage the workload. Now, obviously, different circumstances. He was coming off of an injury versus, this is just Skenes coming out of college and being ready to step into the spotlight. And the Pirates are like, yeah, I don't know. We gotta figure this out just the same as anybody else would. We're just the lucky bastards that have him. So I really don't want to fault the Pirates for any of this because I think they're genuinely just trying to do the best they can to feel their way through the darkness on this. And conservatism is generally going to be the safer approach, but you do have to wonder, are you leaving some meat on the bone when you do that? And like in the case of Strasburg, what does it gain you if the guy ends up, eventually pitchers get hurt? That's what they do. So you might just be resigned to that fate anyway. Specific to this instance, though, the reason I had, and my take on this is I had no problem with it. I did not have an issue with Paul Skenes being pulled after 7. And the reason for that is in part because I understand what the Pirates are trying to do is they're trying to take care of him. Only 4 games out of the 11 he's pitched for Pittsburgh have been 100 or more pitches. So that's kind of his soft cap where you can go a little bit over that, but maybe not every time. And sometimes we're just not going to push it. They're going to have to think about an innings thing with him as well. We looked at it on the Big Show today. I think he was like 128 innings last year between LSU and the handful of innings he threw in the minors for the Pirates. This year, he's already up to like 90 or so. So it's like, are you going to push him to 159 like Strasburg had in 2012? Are you going to push him to 160, 170, like beyond? Does it even matter? Those are the things, too, that they're going to have to figure out. The Pirates aren't probably going to have to deal with a playoff question, though, of like, can they have him healthy and ready to go for October? They're probably not going to be playing in October. So you may not have to worry about that. But I guess if you're the GM, you also do have to be like, you don't want to end up with egg on your face if your team plays its way into a wild card spot and you're like, we didn't think we'd make it here, so we just let Skenes pitch all the time. Then maybe that's another thing that they'll have to be thinking about. And maybe the conventional wisdom on what to do and whether the shutdown is really the way to manage a guy's health as even being effective, maybe it's not. Maybe it's a dumb way to do it. I'm totally fine with that. But I think the notion of, all right, we're just trying to be smart and not go too crazy with him. You're talking about a no-hitter, and it would have been really cool and special to see him throw one. But to me, if you're at 99 pitches after 7 innings, reality, you didn't have an efficient enough outing to throw a no-hitter that day, especially not as a 22-year-old rookie, Paul Skenes. I made the comparison on the Big Show. If it was Bud Smith in 2001, whatever year that was, that Bud Smith threw his no-hitter for the Cardinals, still the last Cardinals no-hitter, then it's like, who cares? Bud Smith, no knock on the guy, but he's not like a prospect. He's just was a dude, didn't have great numbers, never really was heard from again. Maybe because they blew his arm out that day. I don't know. But it's like, dude, this is your chance to like be a legend. Go throw your no-hitter. Paul Skenes is going to be a legend for other reasons, and probably one of them is going to be the no-hitter that he throws at some point, or even the perfect game that he throws at some point. But just realistically speaking, today was not going to be that day. You're at 99 pitches after 7. I understand he had a 6-pitch 7th inning to get to that point, but I just can't expect that he's going to go out in the 8th and do the same thing. And that would basically be what it would take to compel you to also let him try for the 9th inning. Because if you're at 99, what's an efficient 8th would have been 9 pitches. All right, he's at 108. You going to let him go out for the 9th at 108? Yeah, maybe. But what happens if you get into a deep count and you get that guy out or you walk him or whatever? All right, now you're at 117, and what'd you get? Not a no-hitter, but 20 extra stressful pitches. I think it's fine that the Pirates said, look, he's not going to be able to get through 9 anyway, so let's just do it now. Also, this is a 1-0 game against the division-leading Brewers, and we've got Holderman with a sub-1.9 ERA coming in, and we've got Aroldis Chapman able to shut the game down, which his numbers aren't quite as good this year, but he's still Chapman. So you had the game to think about, and it's not to say that Skenes would not have been able to stay in and win him the game. They did end up winning the game, 1-0. Cardinals say thanks because the Brewers, Cardinals didn't have to play today, and they gained a half game on Milwaukee by that. Now, granted, they did lose a couple times on Wednesday, so the division, that's still a ways away. Cardinals just got to start winning some games. Shake the dust off of the Royals series a little bit. But that's just why I had no issue with it from Skenes or from the Pirates regarding Skenes, I guess. And Andy kind of bit my head off for it. So check out the link in the description to that Big Show podcast. 42 minutes and 19 seconds is where the fun begins. And it was fun. It was funny. I think if Skenes is 99 pitches after 8 innings, 100%, you send him back out there. You can let him throw 15, 20 pitches, and it's not the end of the world. But to imagine that he was going to do it twice in a row, then you get into a really dicey situation where if he throws a 15-pitch 8th and it's 114 pitches and you don't send him back out there, it's a whole different level of discourse on like, oh, come on, he was so close. No. They're trying to protect this guy because he is the franchise. He is the most valuable pitcher in baseball. They are just going to have to deal with some of the ramifications of that and trust that, look, the long term is the most important thing, not whether or not he throws a no-hitter in his 11th start or whatever. Would have been really cool. But the other thing of it is, there have been a lot of no-hitters in baseball history. Like, I'm going to look it up now. There's been a 323 no-hitters in MLB history, as of when Ronel Blanco threw one. And I think there have been maybe 1 or 2 since then. So, over 300 times it's happened. Which, MLB has been around a long time. Still pretty special. But it's not like throwing a perfect game. which is why if it was a perfect game under the same circumstances today, 99 pitches, 7 innings, yeah, he's out for the 8th for me. That's different. It doesn't protect his health any better that it's a perfect game versus no-hitter, but the equilibrium shifts by just enough that I'm like, all right, let's see this kid throw a perfect game. And then when he lets a base runner up, you can have the bullpen ready behind him and come in and take him out. But 99 pitches, perfect game. All right, he throws 12 pitches and gets through it. Yeah, he's probably out for the 9th as well. I don't know if I could have the guts as a manager to take a pitcher out of a perfect game. Only been 24 of those ever. 320 some odd no-hitters. A little bit different. Let me know your take, though. Cardinals fans, baseball fans, Pirates fans, if you're in here listening to this, let me know in the comments, should they have let Skenes keep going? I don't think I'm with the consensus on this because a lot of people said, oh, of course, you leave him in there. I was like, nah, I think I get where the Pirates are coming from. I really do. All right, let's talk Max Scherzer because this was the other topic I wanted to get into today before we get out of here. He was asked by former Cardinal, who does a great podcast now, Foul Territory. On Twitter, they got a bunch of followers and a bunch of YouTube subscribers. They do a great job. Was asked, though, about waiving the no-trade clause because he's done it multiple times in recent years, and he's on the Rangers. He's back healthy now, and the Rangers have been, kind of struggling this year, largely without him. But Scherzer is back into their rotation from injury, and, they're starting to play a little bit better baseball, too. That's part of it. They've won 7 of their last 10 as I sit here recording this podcast. So, that's a pretty good recent run, but they're still 5 games below 500, and the AL wild card a little tougher than what the Cardinals are dealing with competition-wise in the NL. You got the Astros 5 games above 500, and they're not even in a spot right now. Royals, Twins, Red Sox, Yankees, all with more than 50 wins, and that's 4 teams. And the Astros would be the 5th team at 5 games over 500. The Rangers are 5 games under 500, and even with that recent run, it just seems like they're going to probably be on the outside looking in. So it made sense. A.J. Pierzynski asked Max Scherzer, like, hey, would you waive your no-trade clause? And here is the conversation that ensued from that question.
Trades. Your name has come up as trade bait again. You wouldn't waive your no-trade again, would you? I know you guys are playing better, but let's say things don't continue to go up. Would you waive your no-trade again? Would it be 3 times in 4 years?
Yeah, I'm not going to do that, but I just don't think I even have to think about that. I think we're going to play better baseball, and it's going to be even a moot point to even talk about. So I think we're going to win here.
So Max Scherzer basically said, yeah, I'm not going to do that. But the reason he said I'm not going to do that is because, well, we're going to win here. We're going to play better baseball in Arlington. The Rangers are going to get back in it. We're defending world champs, for goodness sake, and we're going to win. We're not going to be in the position to sell me at the deadline. So it's just a moot point. We don't even need to talk about that. So it's like, yes, if your headline is Max Scherzer said he wasn't going to waive his no-trade clause, like, that's true. He did say that. But the context was like, yeah, that's a moot point, man. I don't really want to talk about that. I'm gonna stay with the Rangers. We're going to win. All right, what if they don't win? It's July 12th now, as we're past midnight as I record. And they lose 8 of their next 10 to go 11 games under 500. Guy on an expiring contract. Now, maybe he likes it in Texas and is like, no, dude, I won here last year, and I wasn't even a chief contributor necessarily in the postseason. But I like it here. I just got my ring, so it's not like, and I'm not saying Max Scherzer doesn't want to win, but I'm saying if he's happy with where he is, he might be compelled to hang on to that no trade and keep it in his pocket because he just won a ring. So if on the chance they don't really make the miracle come back late in the season for a chance to win another one, well, he did at least just get one. So life could be worse, Would a guy that didn't just win one be a little bit more antsy about it? Maybe. But either way, I don't think Max Scherzer answers that question any differently right now. When the team that he is on has won 7 of 10 and did win the World Series last year, and those are his guys. There's no reason for him to come out and go, yeah, I don't know, we'll see. No, I think you have to answer it the way that he answered it, regardless of what the actual intentions would be. We don't know the future of what the next couple of weeks could bring, and if the front office of the Rangers comes to him and says, hey, man, we're looking to do some sell-type moves, I don't think we're going to be in the mix. We're not in it to win it this year. Loved it, what you did for us last year. we're not in it to win it this year. Would you be interested in, because we're getting some calls about you, maybe us working something out? You give us the list of teams, like that's all fine, but there are interested teams, and we've decided as an organization that we're gonna sell. Would then Max Scherzer be willing to waive it? I would almost be surprised if the answer is no, even though I did hear the same thing y'all just heard, and which is him saying, I'm not going to waive it. But it was more to me when you hear the context about not disrespecting his current team, more so than breaking news that, nope, I'm not going anywhere. Let me know if you read it the same way here in that quote. Like, I could be off base for sure, but I also think, do I think there's a 0% chance? I would say I don't believe there's a 0% chance. I think it's non-zero. It's a little bit of a chance. And maybe a decent chance if the Rangers really start to struggle again. Because, like, if you're that team, prospects these days, man, they're too valuable. They're too good. If you have a chance to get a couple good ones in a year where you can see the writing on the wall that you're not going to make it, it's not like he's got a long-term deal there if he's on a one-year contract. So I'm just not completely convinced that the stars couldn't align for Scherzer to be made available, and in that realm, the Cardinals should be all over it. But right now, this is part of that reason where you're like, well, why won't the Cardinals do something? Yeah, they do have to kind of wait to see what market develops, because that's a guy that I think you'd be interested in for sure. But at this point, he's talking like, no, we're going to win and we're going to make it work here because he's a savvy veteran and that's what he has to say, whether he believes it or not. And I've got no reason to believe that Max Scherzer doesn't believe in his team. But the numbers are ultimately going to dictate that, and we'll see what ends up happening as more games get played. But if I'm the Rangers, I'm running that team, I'm going, you know what? We're probably not in the mix at this point, even after the recent surge. What does it take to, like, where's that line going to be drawn when we have to draw it toward the end of July? Because right now, we've got even the Tigers and Rays are ahead of us in the wild card chase. We're 7.5 games out of a spot, and we got 4 teams to jump over. So it just kind of feels unlikely at this point. Let me know what you think, though, about Max Scherzer's comments and whether you'd like to see him as a Cardinal if the time should come that he's made available by the Rangers. I think it would be a no-brainer to pursue him. I don't know what it would cost. And, of course, the no-trade thing. Is he still mad at the Cardinals? Would he waive it for the Cardinals? Would he waive it for anybody? I guess those are some things that you'd have to think about and wonder. But that's going to do it for this edition of the podcast. Hey, we did it. Another 30-some-odd minutes talking about baseball on a day the Cardinals didn't play. That's what's so fun about this podcast and YouTube channel. We're always going to find something to talk about. So hope you had as much fun as I did. Appreciate you guys, as always, for listening. And we'll talk to you next time on b-schaeff Daily. Join the Discord. Peace.